Remember back in the day when we thought Tom Brady was all in on Team Trump? Well, the 7-time Super Bowl champ indicated otherwise yesterday when he returned to the White House and made more than one joke at the former president's expense.
I think about 40% of the people still don't think we won.
I understand that.
You understand that, Mr. President?
Yeah, I think he might. Because while for Brady it was just a joke, for Biden and the rest of us, or most of the rest of us anyway, it's a painful reality that about a third of Americans and 2/3 of Republicans somehow think Trump won the election, with hundreds believing in enough to storm the Capitol on January 6th. Of course, that's not the only conspiracy theory hurting us as a nation. It's clear we have an epidemic of misinformation on our hands as well. Thankfully, experts like Dr. Fauci are free again to call that out, as we saw yesterday.
You do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly, and I want to say that officially.
We don't know.
Well,
we don't
wait
know
a minute.
if it did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator.
So do I. But at the end of the day, elected officials like Senator Rand Paul do make decisions about this country's future. And with he and his fellow Republicans voting today to refuse to even debate an infrastructure plan that would inject sorely needed money into our communities, it's hard to see any road ahead, if you'll forgive the pun. Joining me to talk about the rise and if there will ever be a fall of lying, I guess, in our society are Boston Globe opinion writer Abdallah Fayyad and Michael Curry, who's the president and CEO of the Massachusetts League of Community Health Centers and chair of the NAACP's National Advocacy and Policy Committee. Abdallah and Michael, good to see you both. Thanks for being here, gentlemen.
Good to be back.
Thanks for having us on.
You know, a pleasure. I would argue that it all began, actually that's not fair, it reached a high profile when Kellyanne Conway went on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd 4 years ago and started talking about alternative facts. And you fast forward 4 years, and in the last couple of days, the President of the United States and the Surgeon General said that when it comes to COVID and vaccine, misinformation is killing people. Are they right, Michael Curry?
Absolutely. I think there's a credible argument that when you fill the airways, when you fill social media with untruths about this pandemic, about this disease, about masks, about vaccinations, you cause people to believe those lies and to not get vaccinated. And as we've heard a countless number of stories and seen across the country, there are conservatives and Republicans and people who bought the hype, who then turn up in our emergency rooms and unfortunately lose their lives because they believed it.
Abdallah, are the three of them, meaning the President, the Surgeon General, and Michael Curry, right?
I mean, yeah, the Republican Party, is a party that right now is really determined on just lying and lying and lying until people believe what they're saying to be true, even if it's far from the truth. You know, this is a party that really believes if you repeat something over and over again, no matter how far from the truth it is, eventually enough people will believe it so that they can get away with evading reality. And that's the current political makeup that we have, is we have a political party whose only strategy to stay in power is to evade reality and undermine democracy in the process. The numbers aren't in their favor, voters are not in their favor, and the only way for them to overcome this is to lie to the general public, to undermine the right to vote. And that's what we're seeing happening from the state level all the way to Congress. Many Republicans in the party.
By the way, it didn't just start on here. I think you both agree. Roy Cohn, when in his tutelage of young Donald Trump, was saying boldly assert something and it becomes the quote truth if you do it enough. So Abdullah, with you, what's the antidote within the COVID world? What's the antidote to the lies, to the misinformation?
Part of the antidote is to, give the platforms to the people we need to public health officials who actually know what they're talking about. And for Republican officials in states to start finally to endorse getting the vaccine and being factual about the impact of COVID-19 and being honest with their constituents about, vaccinations and the importance of getting vaccinated. We just saw recently the governor of Florida, Republican Ron DeSantis, who, is a very far right Republican governor, recently endorsed vaccinations and encouraged people in his state to get vaccinated. We need to see more Republicans, take that stand and endorse what public health officials have been saying for a very long time. It's enough of spewing the conspiracy theories about vaccinating people. It's important for people to just start telling the truth and to step aside when they don't actually know what they're talking about, like Dr. Anthony Fauci, said about Senator Rand Paul the other day.
Yeah. Michael, it's hard to disagree with, having Republican leaders in key states speaking the truth, but the place where I'm not as hopeful as Abdullah is the truth, if spoken, only matters if you hear it. And in this two media America where people select where they get their, quote, news from, they won't even hear the truth. So, I mean, it's almost passé, at least in my estimation, to say you drown out untruths with facts, is it not?
Yeah, in the legal profession, of course, we have a term they call forum shopping, right? Is you choose a court that you think will be favorable to your position or will have an outcome that is favorable to your side. News works the same way as well. People are forum shopping for what they want to hear. But I think it goes back to Abdullah's point, though, right? If we have I'll call it a crazy train, where a whole bunch of people want to believe lies and they want to keep themselves in power, and they'll do it by any means necessary. If we have enough defections and people who are willing, you can explain to me why you got on the train and we can get through that. But then you need to jump off at some point and you need to make it clear whether you're in the state level, city level, or Congress. And you need to speak out. I think if we have enough defections, enough jumpers off that crazy train to people to say, I'm not self-interested. This is not about winning in the midterm. This is not about letting them have any victories. This is about a disease, a pandemic that is killing Americans no matter what color or socioeconomic background you are. If we do that, if we have enough defections, I think we can make some dent in this ignorance.
Well, yeah, let me tell you somebody who I'm afraid disagrees with you, and I hope she's wrong. I was reading a little bit of a book from a professor from my alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania today. The name of the book is Creating Conspiracy Beliefs. And here's what she said. Once people buy into lies, there's no convincing them that they aren't true. And specifically, she says, trying to refute conspiracy beliefs proves it and signals that you are the conspirator. So, Michael, I've tried to pick the most ridiculous example of an untruth I could find. I think you'd agree this is a pretty good one. This is this Congressman Clyde from Georgia. This is in May, talking obviously about the insurrection. Here he is.
There was no insurrection, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bold-faced lie. Watching the TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through Statuary Hall showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes, taking videos and pictures. If you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January the 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit.
I sort of felt that one so crossed the line that nobody would buy it. But check social media in the days after Congressman Clyde said it, Michael Curry, and it was all over the place that Clyde speaks the truth. So I don't mean to be Mr. Negative here, but truth has had a hard way finding its way into these debates, Michael Curry.
Yeah, I think as you know, Jim, a student of history, and I do believe that we've had many lies in American history, in our history in this country. And what happens is people end up, and I'm foreshadowing this, some of those same percentage of 7.4 million people who bought into that lie will one day say, well, I never really believed that. I just wanted to get him back in office, right? They'll have a different version of the lie. And then we'll all be pulling our hair out because we think it's crazy that they acted like they believe it. I don't believe most of them believe it. I believe it's sort of the disruption of saying, hey, we're just going to claim it and drive you crazy in that process. I believe there are very few.
Well, but the consequences, who cares? But Michael Curry, the consequence is the same. If they don't believe it and propagate it, or they do believe it and propagate it, the outcome is the same. And Abdullah, let me give you another example. January 6th Select Committee in the House. Everybody knows today that a couple of days ago, the leader of the Republicans picked 5 Republicans. Some of them voted not to certify the election of Joe Biden. Nancy Pelosi kicked 2 of them off today, Congressman Banks and the infamous Congressman Jim Jordan, in response to which McCarthy pulled all 5 Republican members. Here's McCarthy's reaction to what Pelosi did today. And here's Jim Jordan, even before he was dumped from the committee. I think it was on Monday. Here they are.
This panel has lost all legitimacy and credibility. And it shows exactly what I warned back at the beginning of January, that Pelosi would play politics with this.
This is about going after President Trump. You know, I mean, the Democrats, they don't want to talk about anything else.
You know, I can make the argument, Abdullah, I will make the argument that Nancy Pelosi decided today to stand for truth. I'm not going to have people participate in this investigatory committee who embraced a lie, namely that Donald Trump was, that Donald Trump, was elected president of the United States. So is she going to win that battle over fact and truth, or is it just going to reinforce the beliefs of the Jim Jordans of the world? This is all about they'll do anything to bring down Donald Trump, Abdullah.
I mean, it's hard to say, whether or not the majority of the public, will, who they'll believe. The reality is, though, that Nancy Pelosi is on the side of truth here. Jim Jordan did vote against, certifying the results. He was part of the leadership of rejecting the results of the election and refusing to certify the results. And so the insurrection really happened on the heels of his decision to reject the certification of the vote. So, these aren't necessarily people that we should be trusting in this kind of commission anyway. As for the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy was saying that, this is now a partisan sham. They voted against a bipartisan independent commission to look and investigate January 6th. So the lies are very clear. They're very blatant. They're just hoping, like I said earlier, to say this enough times and over again until people start believing them. But, quite frankly, right now, we already see that the majority of the public do believe that Joe Biden was legitimately elected. They do believe that Republicans are lying. And these are just another example of the lies that Republicans are willing to spew just to try to stay in power and undermine the current administration.
Gentlemen, I only have a minute left, so 30 seconds from each of you on what the long-term prospects are. Abdullah, starting with you quickly, for science, truth, fact, factoring in that something that did work is, I'm sure you both have seen this statistic that was compiled, in the week after Donald Trump was banned from social media outlets, the quantity of misinformation about election fraud in 1 week declined online 73%. I don't know if you think that's part of the solution. In 15 or 20 seconds, Abdullah, you first. What's the future for fact and science and truth? Quickly.
I do think there's reason to be optimistic. We have agency to decide what we platform and what we don't. What you mentioned with Twitter is an example of deplatforming liars and people who are willing to, promote conspiracy theories. So we have agency in this fight, and I think it's a matter of actually doing the right thing.
Last 20 seconds is yours, Michael Curry. What are the prospects?
Yeah, well, we know the Pied Piper of hate and fake news is at least temporarily gone, somewhat gone, and he could be back. But I think this is our opportunity to tell the truth and get to the truth. I know Congressman Benny Thompson well. I've gone skeet shooting with him in Mississippi. He's a straight shooter, a straight shooter.
So
and I
speak.
honestly believe he'll get to the facts and we'll get to the truth. And quite frankly, for those who believe this is going after Donald Trump, it is going after Donald Trump, because he incited an insurrection. And this should be an investigation to determine the facts around that. So it is what it is.
By the way, Benny Thompson, is the skeet shooting partner, is the chair of this select committee. Michael Curry, Abdallah Fayyad, as always, gentlemen, good to see you. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.